Rangefinders. I've been trying to get more on this channel, and fortunately, due to a friend of a friend, I now have this Vortex Razor HD 4000 7x25 rangefinder for review. This comes in right at around $500, and it's a Vortex Razor, which should mean that it's pretty good. Right off the bat, the case is wonderful. The one thing I really didn't like about the Maven was it didn't come in a case like this. For me, this is a really nice feature. Whether you're going out, you're bird watching, you're playing golf, you're hunting, you're hiking, you're shooting long range, having it in a protective case like this is a nice feature. It's got spacing for, it looks like Molly on the back. You can attach this any which way you want, and it's just really nice. You have this elastic strap on top, which does two things. Not only does it keep the clamshell from potentially opening if the zipper fails, but you also have these straps on the inside, which, as you can see, if you have this on your hip, you don't have to worry about this thing opening up and hitting the floor. Get that out there for just a second. It's just a really nice hard shell case. Well, I wouldn't say it's a hard shell, but it's mostly hard. Excellent. Very nice to see. Let's talk a little bit more about the body on this thing. Starting at the bottom, you see we have a 1/4 threaded female adapter, so this way you can hook up any sort of tripods that you'd like on this. You have all your, or most of your information over here. And lastly, in the back, you have made in the Philippines. So, even though this is a Razor product, this is still made in the Philippines, but it's still better than China. At the back, we have our model. We have two little lanyard loops over here for a little strap, and we have our battery compartment. A CR2 battery is found inside. The cap is not overly complex. We have a decent O-ring on the back, and it threads in and locks up quite easily. The eyepiece on the back is extendable if you so choose, and the diopter setting is quite narrow, but it feels really good. It also requires a decent amount of force to turn, so you don't have to worry about this thing getting bumped and then losing focus for you. The clip on the side is swappable to left or right depending on your preference, and the entire shell has this pretty good, like, half-assed rubberized texture to it. It's not super grippy, but it's not super slick either. It's comfortable. You have it in your hand like so, and it requires a lot of squeezing on this to have it slip out of your hand. And my hands are slightly moist. I know no one likes that word moist, but they are. And even then, you could see how tightly I'm squeezing this, and it's not really sliding out. So it's a good finish. On the front, you could see our through lens on top, which you could see the reticle flashing back a little bit, and on the bottom, our laser. We only have two buttons on top that we have to worry about: our measure, or our laser function, and our menu button, which there aren't that many options on this thing to really get involved in, so two buttons really isn't that much of a deal breaker. As far as the weight on this guy, just at 10 ounces. Now, the only other rangefinder I have on hand to compare this with is the Maven RF.1, which comes in at basically the exact same weight. Not only are these basically the exact same weight, they're basically the exact same size. They're also basically the exact same price. Not only that, but if you look at the bottoms, they're actually quite similar, and they're both made in the Philippines. So, which one of these is going to be better? Well, we're going to find that out later on in this review. First, we're going to take a look and see how well this functions by itself, and then see which one of these is the better purchase, because these are both 7x25s, both around the same price, but the Maven offers a significant better feature set as opposed to the Razor. So, let's get behind the Razor and see if it's even worth a damn. So here we are checking out the $500 Razor HD 4000 laser rangefinder. It's just ironic that I got my hands on this shortly after doing the Maven, because these two are basically identical, but more on that later. First off, trying to figure out what the hell the blinking is from. It just so happens it's the refresh rate of the emitter in the optic and my frame rate for my camera at the given time. Fortunately, changing the brightness to brightness level 5, its maximum, it sorts itself out and it works perfectly fine. No, you do not see any flashing to the naked eye, no matter what the brightness setting is. It's just with camera refresh rate with this weird oscillation that happens. Anywho, as far as cycling through the menu, there really isn't a whole lot going on. Truth be told, Just go through the owner's manual, flip through it. You'll get a lot more information than what you're going to get here because there really isn't a whole lot going on, but we'll touch on more of this very soon. With the brightness of the LCD screen on maximum, let's see what this thing is capable of doing. We're not going to talk about the image just yet. I'm curious to see if we can pick up those power lines at about 30 to 40 yards. As you can see, it does pick up some of them. Would be important, let's say, if you're trying to shoot a very small target against a background, a little bit different distances. Can it really pick that up? And the answer is more or less. It's really finicky when it comes down to really small objects. The Maven, I feel, did this section a little bit better, but there were slightly different climate changes. That was, when I filmed the Maven, it was a much colder month. Now it's, 90 with 90% humidity at the end of July. Simply press and hold the laser function to get the scan function to work. And yes, it does shut off automatically after a few seconds, so it doesn't kill your battery in case it is pressed on accidentally. Touching on the image ever so slightly, it is beautiful. It's nice, flat, sharp, and clear, basically from center to the edge. I get it as good as I can in front of my camera, but truth be told, it's not as good as it really is in real life. It's beautiful, very similar to the Maven. As far as how accurate the laser is inside that donut, you can see that it's more or less like half inside the donut what it could pick up between 360 to 600-ish meters. So if you are trying to figure out where that laser is pointing, it's dead center in the reticle, which is really nice. Scanning now between these power lines, which are a little bit thicker than the last ones we were just looking at, you can clearly see it does pick those up, and it does pick up that power tower off about 900 yards or about 820 meters without any issue. The Maven did give me a little bit of a problem with that, but here with this Razor, absolutely no problems whatsoever. Now on to some specialty modes. This thing has 3. It's got first, it's got last, and it's got ELR or extended long range. We're going to start with first. And what this does is if you are scanning with it, it will pick up the closest distance and hold that distance in memory, as you see right here. That closest cable to what we're seeing is 28.6 meters away. If we switch it to last, guess what? It does the last or the farthest distance possible recorded and doesn't look at anything else. So the farthest we were able to laze out currently was 832 meters right there at the bottom of that tree line, and it saves that in memory. Extended long range does not allow you to scan. It's just really extended long range, which this thing should be able to go out to a couple thousand meters, which we're going to test momentarily. But first, what happens if you're using this thing on a hunt in the middle of the winter? Wouldn't it be nice to know if this thing's still going to work when it's in sub-zero temperatures for a little while? For this time, I wanted to do about 5 to 10 minutes, and I got caught up trying to take care of my 8-month-old son, so about 20 minutes later, I pull it out of the freezer, mount it up, and see what this thing is like to use when it is literally ice cold. Well, it's nice to know that it does fire up rather quickly, just like you'd expect a Razor product to, and it does manage to laze some of the bigger targets fairly easily. Now, the haze that you see is just condensation buildup on the outside of the lenses. It's very cold inside my refrigerator, my freezer, and it's pretty warm inside my apartment even though I got the air conditioners running. It does, however, have a slight delay with the laser coming back. I'm just guessing because the condensation built up on the lens. But it does pick up areas that are a lot larger. The tree line it has a little bit of a hard time with, and the power towers it has an even harder time with. But it still functions more or less okay. I do wipe the lenses off, and it does function a lot better, so just know if you are going to be running this in extremely cold temperatures, it might act a little delayed. Before I forget to mention it, the accuracy on this thing is very close. What the number reads you is really, really close to what it actually is, or at least what I can compare against the Maven and Google Maps. As one could safely assume with the number 4000 in this thing's title, that is the maximum effective range in ELR mode on a reflective target. These water towers at 3000 meters come in no problem. However, this thing should also be capable of hitting a tree line at 2500 yards, or deer at 2200 yards. So why the hell are we not getting any feedback from these trees inside of 2500 yards? I don't get it. The Maven did something quite similar. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And no, I didn't do the freezer part before this. I did the freezer part actually at the very end. And guess what? It still seems to work just fine, but I'm having a hard time trying to figure out why manufacturers will rate their laser rangefinders at extremely long ranges, which, guess what, we're in ELR mode, extreme long range mode, and it just doesn't pick up tree lines every single time. I could understand a reflective target at really extended ranges, but it requires, I guess, like the perfect sort of setup. However, it can pick up that boat at 1,747 meters, though not all the time. But it's nice to know that at least that laser is basically dead nuts on to this reticle, which is really nice to see. Perhaps, however, it just didn't like the direction that I was facing. Maybe it wanted to be facing south. So I turn around and I start lasing out, and it's picking up most targets that you would expect. However, it will not range a airplane, so don't even try. It's just a moving target, and it doesn't do so well with that. However, we turn back around and try to get this water tower, which I don't even know how far away this is, but that's a reflective target, and it's still not picking it up. I think that one's like around a mile away, so it's like right on the cusp of what should be possible. However, I do pick up a part of the tree line at almost 3,000 meters. I don't know what the hell that was, if it was a tree or if it was something reflective over there which caught this laser's eye and sent it back to it. But again, not terrible here, but on the other side, it wasn't anywhere near as good. I can't really justify it. I can't explain it. I guess it's just the limit of this thing is a little bit closer than what is, set up by Vortex. It's time to put this 4000 against the RF1. And here we're going to talk about the resolution, colors, contrast, and brightness. The whole lot. Because guess what? These two are basically identical. Just look at the crop that I have going on here. They're really, really, really close. To the point of a couple of percent, I would say. As far as these two, in my opinion, being related to one another, I have not a shadow or question of doubt in my mind that they are. But you do get some features with the RF1 that you do not get with the 4000. So that's something to keep in mind, but more on that very soon. As far as which one of these has a better overall image, these are basically identical. I do still have both of these in hand, and being able to use them side by side in real time proves that. They're both excellent. So, what you're seeing with the image might be wildly different as far as what season they were filmed in, but rest assured they're very, very close. Both of the images on these are sharp enough to pick up any sort of target that a 7x scope can normally pick up, which is really nice. And the fact that it's got the quarter 20 thread adapter on the bottom, so you could set this on a tripod and use it like a mounted monoscope, that's really, really cool. I set this up and was playing around with it for quite some time, and both of these produce excellent looking images, and there's nothing else to really say about that. As far as how these two operate against one another, what you're seeing as far as 400 yards on the right and 366 meters on the left are identical. I should have left the Razor HD in yards because I knew I had filmed the Maven in yards, just so this way both numbers would be the same. But if you cross-reference these two side by side, they're basically identical, which is really great. As far as which one of these I felt was easier to use, I think I'd have to go with the Maven. I really like all the quick adjust stuff on the outside, even though it is a means for water to get in and damage it and break it. But I do really like the larger numbers on the Razor. And as much as I like the option of having different reticles with the Maven, the reticle on the Razor is perfectly fine. Able to laze out at that small boat at 1,700 yards, do you really need much more than that? Well, if you do, then the Maven is for you. Especially considering, at least with the example I had, that dot, as you could see on the Maven right there, is picking up where that little tiny power line is without fail. Both of them scan about the same, but I will give it to the Razor that it seems that it has a little bit higher hit ratio. It picks up things a little bit faster and a little bit more consistently. The Maven, I'm not going to say was lagging behind, but again, it could have had to do with the much colder temperatures that I was experiencing when I filmed with the Maven. It also doesn't help that it was completely overexposed when I was shooting that day, and I couldn't notice because the sun was too bright and I couldn't see out my camera properly. So that's the reason why the Maven looks so washed out, is because it is washed out. I must maintain that both of these have excellent looking, very similar images when they're side by side. I fortunately do have them still both in hand to look at them both side by side, and I can just assure you that they're both so close that I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference. Both of these, however, are having difficulty with that tree line, which should be well within 3,000 yards or meters. Those water towers are much farther away than that tree line is, and both of these are rated for a tree line in the mid-2000s. And the fact that they're not picking them up more consistently just makes me doubt their overall capabilities. I mean, yes, granted, I have been able to test them and see what they're both capable of, but I would expect a little bit more from a tree line's perspective. If you're trying to look at a small metal plate way out in the desert, I don't know how well it's going to work. If you could laze off that metal plate and have it reflect back perfectly, let's say you're perfectly perpendicular with it, I'm sure you can get completely out to 4,000 meters on both of them. But I just couldn't achieve that here with either of these. So they're both a little bit of a letdown in that regard. Truth be told, however, for me and my needs, both of these perform at much greater capacity for anything that I have that I'm ever going to laze out and shoot out to. 2,000 yards, 2,000 meters, I don't have anything that could even come close to that. And even if I did, I don't know when I'd even have the time to even use it, especially in the Northeast. But enough of me ranting, let's get into my final thoughts and close out this video. The Vortex Razor HD 4000 laser rangefinder kind of has a name that you'd hear on an 80s sitcom commercial or on GTA Vice City on one of the radio stations. Vortex is a good company. I like them because they make a product for every price point. If you only have $200 to spend, you have a plethora of different optics and laser rangefinders to choose from. And granted, so if your budget increases to $600, $1,000, $2,000 unlimited, they have a product for you. They also have a great warranty. Some would argue that the warranty is there because you have to use it because their stuff breaks. But I think that, again, comes a lot into play with just their budget stuff, or at least their lower tier stuff. You spend $200 on a scope that does, I don't know, let's say a 5 to 25 magnification range for $200. How good could it really be? How robust can the internals be? It's nice that you at least have that warranty there as a safety net in case something does break. As far as this RHD 4000 goes, it works perfectly fine. I wasn't able to fully get it out to 4,000 yards as you saw in the video, but I didn't have the same luck with the RF1 from Maven. The one nice thing about the Vortex is, though, it comes with this really nice pocket clip and this really nice case. It's brilliant. This is all the Maven needed to come with. It's hard shell, it's got a zipper, it opens up like this, you got the webbing inside, this way it doesn't open up and then fall on the floor. If you don't want to use the zipper, you got this nice little pull tab, so this way you don't make as much noise when you get your laser rangefinder out, and you have a molly pad in the back, or use it as a belt loop around your belt. This is all something like this had to come with. The problem is, though, this is $490 to $500, and this is $450. So if you buy a case for the Maven, you probably put it right around the same price as the Vortex. So these two are basically identical optics. And they're more identical than you might think. I'm only going to make this quick comparison because this is still the Vortex Razor HD 4000 review. But if you're on the fence with one of these, well, yeah, let me show you what I'm talking about. Clearly, optically, as you've already seen, these two are very close to one another. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. First off, size and weight, they're basically identical. These are both 7Xs. They're both about the same price, and they're both made in the Philippines. A little coincidental, don't you think? When you're looking through them, like you already saw, I'm sure I look absolutely ridiculous right now, everything looks basically the same. And even from the front, the laser designator on the bottom and the front lens look exactly the same. In fact, the only real difference is with a couple of aesthetic tweaks from Vortex and or Maven. These are identical, I guarantee you. I bet you they're made in the exact same sort of factory. But there are a couple of key differences that would push you towards one versus the other, and again, vice versa. First off, the case is a really nice touch. But keeping price basically at this point identical, price is not a factor because the original $50, if you want a case, the Maven's going to be basically the exact same cost as the Vortex. The only real reason why you go with one versus the other, and it's not because of the warranty. Maven does claim to have an unlimited lifetime warranty. I just haven't tested it, and hopefully I don't ever have to test it. Vortex has obviously proven themselves time and time again for many people. But the main difference between these two are the controls. The Vortex has a 2-button approach, menu and a measure. Very simple, very reminiscent of basically every other laser rangefinder you'll ever see. You literally push a button, it laser range finds for you, and then that's it. If you want to change something, you have to go to the menu button, then the measure button, vice versa, to change the brightness, to change from yards to meters, and all that other fun stuff. Whereas with the Maven, you have all these really nice controls on the outside. So you want to change the brightness? Done. Rotary dial. You want to go from field to forest, as opposed to if it's going to pick up, let's say, a branch in the way, or you want to look past a branch or through a little brush, well, you go and flip a switch. It's that simple. In fact, the controls on the Maven really make it something that I really appreciate and have grown to love, because it's so easy and efficient to just change everything on the fly. But convenience usually comes at a cost, and it's not monetary cost at this point, it's perhaps durability and longevity. You see all these buttons, the button in the middle, the rotary dial, the switch lever on the back, are all means of water egress to get in, and something else that's going to break. The Vortex takes a much more simple approach with just 2 buttons. It's only 2 buttons. This has 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 being a rotary dial. So there's a lot more potential things to break on the Maven as opposed to the Vortex. But I really like what the Maven offers, because you have different reticle options, and again, everything is so easy to adjust on the fly that it's just something that I really do appreciate. And you might as well. But if you don't like that, if you want something that's going to be a little more waterproof potentially, or more durable, you have the Vortex. So you see, with these two, as similar as they are, they're also quite different. Both of these were able to laze out to about 3,000 yards on a giant steel water tower, but ultimately, which one's going to be best for you, I can't tell. I can't answer that for you. I'm not inside your head. As for me, I do appreciate what the Vortex offers with the clip, the case, the simpler buttons, but I do really like all the exterior controls of the Maven, which is why I'd probably still pick this for myself. However, you might prefer everything that the Vortex comes with, and thus go with that. I really don't think there's a wrong choice in the matter, because as far as I can tell, these are basically identical in every other way, shape, and form. So, with that, thank you all very much for watching, and as always, see you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you could still help by using my affiliate links in the description below, and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.